Yeah, a zoning officer, okay. We have two continued cases and two new cases this evening. But before we begin, Bill, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Please rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our first continued case is case Z18-11, Kurt and Gabrielle Hyde, owners of 924 Haverford Road, Bryn Mawr, PA, DC, folio number 2205-00399900, who requests that the zoning hearing board allow the reinstatement/extension of zoning order Z18-11. Property is zoned R4 and located in the 5th Ward.
Members of the board, Jim Greenfield, good to see you all again, and hope you've been well through everything that's been going on.
Thanks, Jim. Same to you.
You may remember this case. It was somewhat contested a couple of years ago, and we're in a position where we need another year to finish construction. We had a number of things that delayed us. Really, the thing that delayed us more than anything else was land development approval, which we didn't get until April of 2019. And then we had delays with plans and with getting documents signed and recorded and everything else. And so we find ourselves here having literally just begun construction on Monday. We closed the construction loan Monday. We were handed our site work permit by the township on Monday, and we've now begun work. We anticipate getting a full building permit next week. And under the construction loan documents, we're required to show as an after condition of closing that that there are no obstacles to proceeding with the project. And so if we can get another year, really a year from yesterday until July 1st, 2021, that would be...
Jim, when did the first year expire?
Well, the condition that was attached to your approval in this was June 7th of 2018. The order said 2 years from approval, and the letter, the cover letter said 2 years from this decision. So it was not entirely clear whether approval in the order meant your approval or land development approval, but
It was our approval.
yeah, okay. Well, then that was our assumption in coming here tonight. So, yes, the approval was June 7th of 2018. Land development was almost exactly 10 months after that in April of 2019.
So if I could, it would have been June 7th, 2020.
Right.
So, were they also delayed by the pandemic?
At the end of the process, yes, the pandemic did have an effect on us.
All right. Any questions? Bill?
No, I don't have
Ed?
No.
Jess?
No.
Okay. Is that it, Jim?
That's it.
Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and I will ask if my fellow board members are prepared to vote. Bill, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Ed?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move that we extend the time constraint for an additional year to expire July 2nd, for a year from the date of this hearing. Bill, how do you vote?
I agree.
Ed?
To be consistent, since I voted against it the first time, I will vote against it now.
Jess?
I agree.
Okay. The extension is granted, 3-1.
Okay. Thank you very
Take
much.
care, Jim.
Appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Next continued case is case Z20-7, Handmaid's Sacred Heart, owners of 616 Coopertown Road, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 22050019400, who seek approval to construct a 12-foot by 8-foot shed per the conditions of ZHB Case 10 of 1957 and from number 16 of 1960, and a variance from section 182-602C5 to encroach into the required 50-foot setback by 44 feet. Property is owned institutional and located in the 5th Ward. Who's here for that case? Please come forward. Bill, is that identical to the relief requested in the original app? I may just not be recalling the reference.
Yes, it is, and if I could, before we commence, I will tell you that that is the same relief. At the hearing of March 5, 2020, there were 7 exhibits that were admitted into the record, and those are contained in the exhibit list for this evening. We have subsequently received 3 emails. One has been pre-marked as Exhibit A8. That is an email from Michael Lastowski, Lastowski. Mr. Lastowski had offered some testimony in opposition to the requested relief. His email of June 29, 2020 indicates that he no longer objects to the application. I would suggest that be marked, and I think it already has, as Exhibit A8. Additionally, on Monday of this week, the township, which subsequently sent them to me on behalf of the board, received 2 emails. A9 would be an email from Brian Carroll, Carroll. I would suggest that be marked as Exhibit A9. I'll read that into the record momentarily. And then A10 would be an email from Agnes Guerin, Guerin, which would conclude the evidentiary record. I would remind the board that this matter was not held open for additional testimony or exhibits, but rather it was given a 2-week extension at that time, at which time the virus and the pandemic stopped us in our tracks to see if the protestant, Mr. Lastowski, and the applicants could work out some sort of an arrangement or just kind of work things. And no promises were made that if they agreed that there would be a granting of any approval. It was simply a matter of see what you can do and see what you can come up with, because there had been discussion about moving the shed to various properties. That being said, I would suggest to the board, as a matter of just really preserving the record as best you can, that the 2 emails that I referenced, A9 and A10, be accepted. With that, Mr. King, could I read in A9 and A10?
Yes, please.
A9 is an email dated June 25, 2020 from Brian Carroll, Carroll, reading as follows. My name is Brian Carroll, and I live at 65 Meadows Lane, Haverford, PA 19041. My backyard borders on the property owned by Handmaiden's Sacred Heart. I am writing to oppose the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart Z20-7 variance to place a shed next to my property. There is no hardship because the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart have an abundance of land available to place the shed without getting a variance. It seems that Handmaiden's Sacred Heart doesn't want to have the shed in the middle of their property, so they would rather place next to my property. Having to look at a shed that you decided to build is not a valid hardship. Having to look at a shed that you decided to build is not a valid hardship. Also, as I understand it, the proposed storage shed would be used by a third party, parentheses, a Club Scout troop, end parentheses, not the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart. I don't understand how the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart could have a, quote, hardship, end quote, when the shed would be used by a third party. Parentheses, I also find it troubling that the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart are going to grant a right of access to their land to a third party, end parentheses. I don't understand why I, parentheses, as opposed to the Handmaiden's Sacred Heart, end parentheses, should have to watch and listen to the comings and goings of Club Scouts using a storage facility, question mark. At bottom, I would appreciate it if you would deny this variance and help preserve the quiet residential character of our neighborhood. Thanks, Brian. I would suggest that be accepted as Exhibit A9.
And it is.
Exhibit A10 is an email from As I indicated, Agnes Guerin, dated Saturday, June 27, 2020. It reads as follows. My name is Agnes Guerin, and I live at 54 Meadows Lane, Haverford, PA 19041. I am writing to oppose the Handmaiden Sacred Heart Z20-7 variance to build a shed next to my neighbor's property. I would appreciate it if you would deny this variance and help preserve the quiet residential character of our neighborhood. Thank you, Agnes Guerin. I would suggest that that be marked as Exhibit A10.
And so it shall be.
That would conclude the evidentiary record at this time.
And now I would ask whoever's present for this case. Brian, I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you
I'm
swear to
sorry.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and your full name and address for the record, please?
My name is Brian, B-R-I-A-N. My last name is Carroll, C-A-R-R-O-L-L. I reside at 65 Meadows Lane, Haverford, PA, 19041.
What would you like to tell us, Brian?
As I mentioned in my email, and my property borders the Handmaiden of Sacred Heart's property. And they want to build a shed. And they want a variance to build the shed right at the property line, or very close to it, not the 50-foot setback. And I don't understand why they have to do this. One, they have an abundance of land, to quote my own email, to put it somewhere else. Two, it's a supposed hardship, but again, it's a hardship that they've created by allowing a third party onto their land to use that storage shed. Also, and by the way, I'm an Eagle Scout, proud of it. I have nothing against the Boy Scouts, but there's going to be a lot of activity at this shed. People are going to come and drop off materials for camping, scouting activities, pick them up, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to create noise. You're going to have Boy Scouts running around, leaders meeting there, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know that they can maybe represent certain protections and limitations, but like any volunteer organization, sometimes those rules over time, are sort of recognized in the breach. I was a scout. We had a lot of dads who would come and go out on camping trips. They didn't know all the protocols and all of the rules, so I could just see a situation where people show up 2 hours early to drop something off. Let's have the kids meet there, et cetera. Oh, let's do a little speech about what we're doing. So there's a content usage issue, which may be beyond the jurisdiction of this board, but still it affects what we're talking about here. And I know that I think that they're trying to do the right thing by having restrictions, but if they're confident that these restrictions would be effective, then my question is, why can't they move the shed closer to one of their buildings? Why is it my property? Why is it my house that's going to be closer to it? I understand also the quality of this facility values quiet. Well, so do I. I value quiet. So I did a little research, and I mean a little. This may get me in trouble, but I looked at the general law, 182-1004, variance, unique physical circumstances or additions, irregular narrowness, shallowness of the size of the lot. These are grounds for granting a variance. Exceptional typographical or other physical conditions. There's no issue here regarding that. There's plenty of land there. Another factor is physical circumstances or conditions where there's no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity. Again, there's an abundance of acreage there, i.e. the 50-foot set, just you go back 50 feet. The third factor, C, unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant, the appellee. Well, again, my argument is by inviting a third party on, they're creating it. It's not something that's been foisted on them or that they themselves are requesting a variance for, an activity of their own. And the last subsection D, the variance would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Well, right now we have a very quiet neighborhood. We have no storage facilities. We have no volunteer activities like that operating. So my argument is this would alter the essential character. Now, I have another concern that I just thought about driving over here. This is a tax exempt group, I'm assuming.
They're operating under some form of government, well, I guess their tax exempt status bestows some sort of government approval in some measure, but here they are allowing a third party in. What's to stop other third parties to say, hey, what's your criteria for granting a shed, granting access? This is a precedent that I don't know where it's going. I'm not sure they do. I also don't know, but I wonder if there's some sort of, I doubt there's maybe a cash payment, but is there some sort of in-kind arrangement? Will there be a contribution or something? These are ancillary factors, but nevertheless, my argument is that the variance shouldn't be granted. It would change the character of the neighborhood, and there's no legal basis for it. Thank you.
Okay.
If you have any questions.
Any
I'm happy to
questions for
stay around.
Brian? Bill?
No.
Ed?
No questions.
No.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, we didn't touch anything, but I just.
Thank you, Cal. What is your name again?
Michael Schaefer, treasurer for the PAC 500.
Did you testify at the last hearing?
Yes,
So I already swore you?
yes.
Okay, and what's your name again?
Michael Schaefer, SCHAFFER.
So I think I recall at the conclusion of the last hearing that you guys were going to speak with the handmaids and try to,
Yes, we spoke with the person that had lodged the initial discomfort with the proposal. We went and we walked the site, and he, there as a result of that, mentioned that it was no longer in opposition, which is why we asked, he said he couldn't not be here today, so he kindly formed that email to be entered as that last exhibit.
and did you speak with the, for lack of a better term, the landlord to see if there's a better location on the property?
Well, yes, if you recall, at the earlier meeting, we sort of went back and forth with all the different possible spots that could or could not be in there, and I believe the Sister Tree addressed the concerns that were brought up, and we went back and forth for
She
quite a
said-
bit about it.
She said no, if I recall, but it's been a while, so is that,
Right.
is that fair?
Yes.
Said there's no other place? Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just is this going to be the, I guess just a procedural question about, does this get continued on, and do we make a decision today, or?
If there's a question that we want our solicitor to research, or any of us independently want to research on our own, we typically defer a decision to our next meeting, but I think this case was, principally completed
Okay,
before tonight, so it's more likely that I'll ask my fellow board members if they're ready to vote tonight, and if they are, that we'll just take a vote.
okay.
And I have no idea how they're going to vote, but if this application is denied, you might approach a commissioner to see if there's maybe a spot up at the creek where you could.
Or if we could put together letters of support, if additional information is being gathered at this meeting, I'd like the opportunity to provide additional letters of support if additional inquiries of opposition are going to be entered. Or considered, I should say.
Okay, any questions for Michael? Bill?
Just wasn't sure, do you mean you want to keep the record open then?
Well, no, just if I was under the assumption that everything had been entered in that we were to be considering at the last
Yeah.
meeting. If we're going to be considering the additional two pieces of evidence that were, the emails that were put in, If that's going to weigh it all against us, I would like the opportunity to bring in additional letters of support to counter that, but I don't know if that's even a consideration.
Well, you know, while, you know, different board members give different weight to opinions and views of neighbors, adjacent property owners are interested parties. And
Sure.
their views are important. But most important is the code and what the criteria is to qualify for a variance. So,
All right.
you know, so you know the priority of things, but
Mr. Kane, if I could,
Yes.
the emails that were received offered opinions or desires of the neighbors. Those are generally not grounds for voting for or against an application. The three exhibits, one indicating there was no longer an objection, and two with objections, provided no additional factual evidence for this board to consider. So it is in the board's discretion if they want to keep it open, but at the same time, there was no additional evidence, in my opinion, that was placed before the board today. And the record was kept open not for additional evidence, but rather just to see if there was any sort of compromise that could be reached.
So, any questions for Michael, Bill,
No.
Ed,
No other questions?
Jess?
No.
Thank you for your time.
Michael. Okay. It's not, but I'll allow you to, so please.
My neighbor who opposed it and then didn't oppose it, he's 2 doors down. This shed is square.
Well, let me stop you here. At this point, the record was not kept open for additional evidence. I suggested that the email was allowed in for the let me finish, please. It's not I'm just giving advice to the board. The board will do what the board does, taking my advice. It was not kept open for additional evidence, but rather discussions. I suggested the board accept the 3 emails as they were not evidentiary in nature. I believe now Mr. Carroll is getting into evidentiary issues, and I believe that would be inappropriate given where the record left off in March.
Okay,
Based on council's comment, I withdraw my comments.
thank you. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case. Take a shot. Bill, are you prepared to vote on this?
I am.
Ed, are you prepared to vote on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Jess, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Bill, do you want to take the decision?
Sure. In the case of agenda item Z20-7, where the applicant at 1616 Coopertown Road has requested a variance to allow the encroachment into the required 50-foot setback, I would vote against the variance.
Ed?
Your job's not always easy, but the code is fairly clear, so yes, I would have to agree with Bill.
Jess?
I agree with Bill.
And, well, we really respect that, the work you do with the kids, and it was fantastic having them at the hearing. Based on the clear legal criteria, I agree with my board members, and I also vote no. So that application is denied 4-0. All right. Everyone okay to keep going, or you want to take a break?
Nope, good.
Good?
Yep.
Bill, you good?
Yep.
Give Kelly a minute. Al, are there waters back there? In the fridge?
while Mr. Kane stepped out, who is here on the 600 Marion Avenue case? All four of you on Marion? Okay, thank you. And obviously, you must be Brookline. Thank you.
All right. All good, Cal? Our next case is Z20-8, Christopher and Kimberly Wilgus,
Yep, that's good.
owners of 600 Marion Avenue, Haverford Town, PA, DC, folio number 220800, 7440000, who seek a variance from section 182206C6A to construct a 165 square foot mudroom that will encroach into the required 8-foot side yard setback by a maximum of 5 feet. The proposed mudroom will be constructed with the same footprint as the existing 9-foot by 13-foot deck and 6-foot by 8-foot landing, granted with the conditions by the zoning hearing board, case number 2-6 of 1989. Property is zoned R4 and located in the 8th ward. Ladies first, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Kimberly Wilgus, 600 Marion Avenue, Havertown, PA, 19083.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Christopher Welgus from 600 Marion Avenue, Havertown, Pennsylvania, 19083.
Okay. And who's going to be the primary presenter?
I will be the primary presenter with help from my wife. Yeah, she does all the hard work.
Mr. Kane, as a matter of
I know. Go ahead, Bill.
trying to make this,
Go for your litany.
trying to make this matter expeditious, I have a list which is up on the screen. I would like to go through all the exhibits first, identify them, and have the applicants confirm that these are the exhibits they wish the board to accept and admit them into evidence. Exhibit 1 is a 3-page zoning hearing board application and addendum signed by both of the applicants. The addendum is actually not really an addendum per se, but a description of the hows and whys in terms of their desire. It would just fit better onto a 3rd page. The Exhibit A2 is the March 16, 1989 order of the Zoning Hearing Board of Haverford Township approving a request for a variance back at that time to reconstruct an existing 6-foot by 8-foot deck in the side yard and extend the existing deck by 9 feet by 13 feet. There were some conditions to that. Simply that the extension and construction be in accordance with the exhibits and testimony presented to the board, and prior to the issuance of a building permit plan regarding buffering and shrubbery around the proposed expansion. Exhibit A3 is a site plan of 600 Marion Avenue. Exhibit A4 is a further addendum in which, and I'm sure the applicants will address this, they spoke in this addendum A4 as to the difficulties with moving the shed moving the deck to a different area on the property. Exhibit A5 is 4 photos on 1 page of the front yard. Exhibit A6 is their not their initial application, but the prior owner's initial application to the zoning hearing board in 1989. And Exhibit A7 is a worksheet showing the, among other things, impervious coverage. I would ask the applicants, did I correctly identify those exhibits?
Yes, you did.
And are you asking the board to have these moved into the record?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
So the exhibits are admitted. So why don't you tell us a little about what you would like to do and why?
Yeah, so we would like to have our mudroom that we'd like to build on top of an existing deck that is there behind our house. And there's 3 real reasons why we feel that this is the only location that we can place that deck. One is that it's the main entrance to our house. It's where our driveway ends and the walkway leads into the house. 2, our front yard has a pretty significant slope on it. We've had erosion from the dirt that's been put down there. So in one of the pictures, you can see the sidewalk has been eroded away from that we installed when we moved into the house. And 3, the most important reason in my mind why the deck has to be behind the house there is that it floods in the front. And so we have seen, even in moderate rain, there's a significant flooding because we're at the bottom of a hill. So Larchmont Avenue feeds into where our place is there, and we're really looking to build a mudroom, not a flood room. And that's why we'd like to have that place behind the house.
And these photos on A5, they're pictures of the front of your house?
There's a pictures of the front of the house,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's not the back where the...
No, that's not the back,
No.
no.
One is like kind of from the side, and then the other is from the front, and then another is just a picture of the rain, what it looks like when it rains.
Questions? Ed?
A3 is the plot plan.
Yes.
Could you explain a little bit, it's hard for me to read what is in there in the red.
Yep, so in the red is where we would like to build. That's the existing deck, and that's where we would like to place the mudroom on top of the footprint of the existing deck.
And you don't have anything on the neighboring property. Is there a lot similar to yours?
So they are not a corner lot. They are an adjacent lot that is like a similar depth to ours. I'm just not on the corner.
Yeah, so it faces, that's like their side yard.
Yep.
That our backyard backs up to. It's not their front or backyard. It's like a side with shrubbery on their side, kind of buffering their property and our property.
But the structure that the closest they come, or within the required, are they in compliance with the setback?
I'm not sure if our neighbors are or not. I don't know that.
What, their house, you mean?
Their neighbor's
Oh,
house?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
I'm
assume
not
so,
sure.
yeah, they're not
Yeah.
right there.
I assume so as well.
Yeah.
It looks like there's as much room on their side between the house and the property line as there is on our side.
And it's a weird shape that you have for this. So this is all a structure or a deck?
It's a
That's-
deck,
That's
yeah.
just what the deck
that's
looks
what the
like right
deck-
now, so we
Yep.
figured it was just easy to use that same footprint, but we're certainly open to change that footprint around if
Yep.
that would make it, easier to get.
So what's the mudroom part of it then?
So the mudroom would go on top of where that red is. So we would essentially use that same footprint where the deck is and use that as where the mudroom would go.
Like remove the deck completely and just
Yep.
replace it with a permanent structure.
Okay, so you don't have a drawing that shows the proposed mudroom then?
No, but it would be those same dimensions.
Yep.
But we don't have like an architectural drawing now.
Mm-hmm. And so the distance between the property line, is there a fence on the property line?
Yes.
So what would be the distance between the fence and your mudroom structure?
3 feet
And
is
that's-
at the closest, 3 and then 6 at the other cutout.
And that is the minimum relief that you could live with?
So I wouldn't say it's the minimum we could live with. I
Yeah,
mean,
we-
we could do, it could be smaller than
Yeah,
that. So for
we've-
example,
We have talked to some folks that, we'd probably talk to about building it if we were approved, to see kind of what the minimum was, because obviously we're trying to make it as small as possible, and they said 4 feet, which would leave the 8 feet variance would really be tight, like with the, just building the walls and the structure. So we need a little bit more than that, but we don't need the full 9 feet if that seems too tight. But I think we need more than 4 in order to build a usable space.
And one other question for you, is there a light gray area with stripes?
Yep.
And can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so that's stairs going down to it's a walkout basement that's there too. So there's a patio, and then that patio has a sidewalk, and those are stairs that go down into again, our walkout basement.
So your current deck is elevated?
It is,
Yep.
it's elevated, yes.
Yep.
How far is it elevated?
It's elevated, I'd say about 2 feet or so,
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
far.
Oh, so it's not 6 steps? or?
Oh, no, it's not, it's
no,
three
that wasn't the
steps. Yeah,
scale.
I'm sorry, yeah, so it's three
If I,
steps.
if I
up.
could,
One at a time.
married, I know how it is to finish out each other's sentences and talk at the same time, but the reporter can only take down one person at a time, so if we could just make sure that we slow it down a little bit, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the litany I thought you were going to say the first time, not the exhibits.
And then that leads to the final question. The mudroom, how high would it go to? Is this a two-story house, a one-story house?
We do have a two-story house, but it'd be a one-story mudroom.
Okay, that concludes my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jess?
Is there a pathway from your driveway to the front, the true front of the house on Marion Ave?
You have to, you kind of walk around to the street sidewalk, and then come through that pathway.
So it's not what you showed here, because on the plot
Yeah,
plan, it
I
looks
guess you
like
could
there's
go
a sidewalk.
around, so the most direct entrance is to the back where the back door
Mm-hmm.
is, but I guess you could go, kind of weave through the patio and then come up around the front, and then go to the front door. So it's possible. It's longer, but possible.
And then, when you go into your front door on Marion, what do you walk into?
The living room?
It goes right to the living
Yeah,
room?
right to the living room.
And then the
Yep.
back door goes right into the
To the
kitchen?
kitchen.
It actually goes, you walk into like a 4x2 maybe landing, and then there's 2 steps that walks up into our dining room. So it's not directly into our living room. It's kind of a landing and then a step up into the living space.
Okay. And does your back door swing out into the exterior?
Yes, yeah, well, actually, so the one door swings out, the screen door swings out, and then the interior door swings in.
No further questions.
Bill?
Just because it's not depicted on the map, if you could have, so you do have a back door, so the kitchen is, if you were walking from your garage into your kitchen, you
Yep.
would cross your patio, is that right?
Correct.
And then where would you enter the side, the rear, I guess it's the side of the building or the rear of the building?
Yeah, so it's tough to see there in the map. There is I can see it better on the screen here where it says back door. So it's about halfway, I'd say it's about 5 feet from the beginning of the deck. It's on your left there. Clearly. So there's a little box.
Okay.
Again, my apologies, it's tough to see in the map.
Okay. And those stairs, those are stairs going down?
Those are stairs going down. So there's a larger set of stairs going down, one floor to the basement, and then a short 3 steps that go up to the deck.
And then your neighbor on Larchmont, you said that there's a fence,
Yes, yep, there's fence and shrubbery.
and is that house essentially on higher ground than your house?
It is on higher ground, yep.
So when does their ground floor look into your second floor, or is it not that steep?
Not quite that steep, not quite that steep. Yeah.
And have you spoken to that neighbor?
We have, so we've spoken to, the house is rented right now too, so we've spoken to.
The house is- I'm sorry,
It's
what?
rented,
Rented.
so not to the owner we haven't spoken to, but to the people that are renting the house. The prior tenants, we just had new tenants move in, like about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, so we haven't spoken to them.
And Ms. Clark, we have not received any, email comments from any of the neighbors who may have gotten certified mail?
I have not received any, no.
And so the existing footprint of the patio, which will become the footprint as proposed of the mudroom, it obviously widens as it gets further from your garage. And it widens out, it starts out, I think you said about 4 feet wide, and then widens to 9 feet, although
Yep.
it maybe doesn't look, it looks a little bit like it widens by 3 feet, but it was started at 6 feet or something?
Yeah, I think it's 6 feet out to 9 feet, is that correct, Kim? Yes, so 6 feet, it's 6 feet wide, and then comes out to 9 feet.
And is there a reason that when you're thinking about the design or the utility or the need, that you need to have a certain width I'm not an ADA compliant lawyer, for instance, but I would presume that there's a certain sort of minimum width that you would need for what effectively looks like a hallway before it widens. And then the point of the mudroom, I'm assuming, is that you need some storage shelving, hangers, whatever.
It is.
And so is 6 feet wide in that hallway? Do you need that for shelving space in that 6 feet? Is that why?
We do, yeah. I mean, that's one of the major reasons that we're doing the mudroom, is to have an entrance and more storage area there too. So that's why we would need that, 6 feet for cabinetry, for the actual entrance coming in.
And
books.
still be able to walk through?
And still be
right?
able to walk through, yes.
And then the area where it really shrinks the setback down to only 3 feet, which is a significant intrusion into the minimum 8 feet. Is that necessary? I mean, could you live with a 6 foot wide all the way down?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could, yeah, I do. I think we could, because I think that you get the key component of being able to put cabinetry, in there too. So we were using the original footprint of the deck, but we think we could do with 6 feet.
Without hearing from the neighbor, it would seem to me that it's a more reasonable intrusion into the side yard setback if you're only going in by 2 feet out of 8 than by 5 out of 8.
Okay.
I know we're only talking about a couple feet, but as a percentage of the overall setback, it's a more meaningful number when you start looking at percentages. So, okay, I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Did those questions and answers give rise to any more questions for you, Ed?
No, I think the compromise looks good, because then it would eliminate some of the encroachment that was previously approved, and we don't know why they gave a variance previously, we just know that they did. So there might have been some outstanding things that we're not aware of, but I don't know why they would approve a deck that close to the property line like that. But, okay, that's interesting. No more questions.
Yes?
No more questions.
Okay. The finish on, if the board were to grant your request, the exterior finish would be consistent with the rest of the house, your house?
Yes, it would be.
Right, I don't have any questions. Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No, I don't think so.
Can I just ask a clarification? So on your house, it looks like it's largely stucco?
Yes.
With a clapboard front sunroom, or what maybe was originally a front porch on
Yep.
the
Yep.
Larchmont side. So if you are matching your siding,
Yes.
you'll be matching it to the stucco?
And we have siding on to the very far, if we're looking at the diagram, the very far right part of this diagram here, there's siding that's on
Yeah.
there, so we match that same siding.
It's the color of the siding is matched to the color of the stucco,
Yes.
so we would just match
Yep.
the siding, the stucco and the other siding.
Is that it, Bill?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else either of you would like to add?
That's it.
No, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. With
Thank you
that,
very
I'll
much.
let- You're welcome. I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone present that received regular mail, any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this.
Mr. Kane, we do have someone here, I don't know what type of mail they received, but they did indicate off the record that they were here regarding
I'm
this
sorry, I
matter.
didn't see your hand. Thanks, Cal. Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address, please?
William A. Bailey. We're at 601 Marion Avenue.
What would you like to tell
My
us,
wife,
Mr.
BJ.
Bailey?
All right, at the top of the picture here, you see a white. That would be like Marion Avenue. Beyond that is our house. What I have to say is mostly tangential to legal stuff. I would like to say that Kim and Chris are very good neighbors. They have 3 lovely children, well-behaved, and a nice dog who is also well-behaved. Now, with 3 kids and a dog, no matter how well-behaved, this mudroom sounds like a really good idea. Now, as I recall, the house, which is in this bottom white part, I don't think there's any doors leading out there that, encroaching would make a whole lot of difference one way or another. That's the side of the house. That looks like a great place for a mudroom. If you've seen the house, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of the front of the house. Anyhow, the front leads right into the living room or dining room areas. So that's not ideal. Coming in through the back here seems like a great place to put the mudroom. And that's all I had to say.
Okay. Any questions? Bill?
No, thank you.
Jess?
No.
Ed?
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Your maiden name's not Bailey, is it? I'm only kidding. Okay, anyone else? Okay, with that, we'll close the record on this case, and a decision will be rendered either this evening or at our next regularly scheduled meeting on July 16.
Correct.
I don't want to call a vote now, Bill. I have a question for you about this one, but I think it's prudent to just roll into the next case unless you think it's better to stop now.
I would just stop and we can walk out of the room. There's no caucus room, but we can walk
Okay.
outside and you can ask me your question. Oh, we can use the caucus room? Okay.
We can walk outside. I got to take this mask off. Like I'm suffocating. All right, we're going to take 5. Here's a chop.
There it goes.
All right. All right. With respect to case Z 20-8, Christopher and Kimberly Wallace. Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
Ed, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
Bill, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
And Bill, would you like to also take this decision?
Sure, with respect to zoning hearing board application Z 20-8, 600 Marion Avenue, I would vote to grant the variance as requested, subject to the following conditions. The encroachment into the side yard setback shall not exceed, the encroachment shall not exceed 2 feet, leaving at least 6 feet of setback. The exterior of the addition will be as indicated by the applicant in conformity with the exterior of the house. The project will be completed within 1 year of today's date and in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Okay. Jess?
I vote against the application.
Ed?
Since the compromise actually reduces the existing encroachment, I vote in favor of the variance.
And so do I. That application's approved, 3-1. Okay, good night. Thank you very much. Our next case is case Z 20-9. Paul and Adriana Bowen, owners of 551 Brookline, Havertown, PA, DC, folio number 22080010100, who seek a special exception from section 182711A3B, or in the alternative, a variance from section 182711A2 to exceed the 18-foot maximum height of the garage by 16 inches, Property is zoned R4 and located in the 8th Ward. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Paul Bowen, 551 Brookline Boulevard, Havertown, PA, 19083.
Okay. Paul, please tell us a little bit about what you would
Mr.
like to
Kane,
do.
if I could,
ahead,
just to expedite matters, as I did in the last hearing, I want to go through the exhibits, identify them, and have the applicant adopt and accept that I've correctly identified them. So Exhibit A1 is the zoning hearing board application signed by both Mr. Bowen as well as his wife, Adriana.
Correct.
It includes an addendum page. Again, it was simply more of a explanation of the whys and whats. Exhibit A2 is a site plan of the subject property. Exhibit A3 is a garage elevation dated March 15, 2019. Exhibit A4 is another garage elevation dated March 19, 2019. A5 through A11, if I could first start, I have read each of these, and these are emails from neighbors of the applicants. All of the neighbors, without reading these detailed emails into the record, are in favor and not opposed to the application. A5 is from Ken and Liz Beebe, B-E-E-B-E. A6 is from Richard McCarron, M-little-c, capital C, A-R-R-O-N. A7 are from Dan and Kelly Flounders, like the fish with an S on the end. A8 is from Ingrid Lutz, L-U-T-Z. A9 is from May, that's M-A-Y-E, Thornton, T-H-R-O-N-T-O-N. A10 is from Meg and Nick Ardizzi, A-R-D-I-Z-Z-I. And A11 is from Marjorie, M-A-R-J-O-R-I-E, Lynn, L-Y-N-N-E, Rice, R-I-C-E. I don't think, given that Mr. Bowen's the only individual in this room, and that we don't have any emails in opposition or testimony in opposition, that the details need to be completely read into the record because they will become part of the record if so moved by applicant. Mr. Bowen, did I correctly identify those exhibits?
Yes, sir, you did.
And are you seeking to have the board accept those into evidence?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
So, Bill, 18 feet is the max, right?
Yes,
What's the height of this? 19.4, is it?
yes.
Okay.
My understanding from reading the application A1 is that there's really a twofold issue. One is that applicant has two antique vehicles and needs the additional height to safely get them into the property, but also wants to preserve the architectural character of the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Bowen, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why?
Well, the structure is already built and tar papered, but that's been about it. The reason why it went up a little higher was because of the antique cars, and we needed the pitch for the rainwater to come off just a little bit more. And I built it with a natural stone veneer to look exactly like our house. My wife and I took our time to find an exact matching stone, which is 4 feet high, and then it's going to be stuck with the rest. Essentially, it looks exactly like another garage on Brookline Boulevard, right by the parking lot, across the street from the Havertown gym, is essentially what it's going to look like. It matches with the overhangs, exactly the same. It's an extension of our house. I kept the setbacks away an extra foot. It's on the same footprint as before. It's just another bay. It's just the issue is my house is really tall, so I didn't want a shorter, squattier garage to kind of look out of place. So, my wife and I take a lot of pride of, where we live and, to keeping it in coordination with the neighborhood. And, we feel as though it's an asset to the neighborhood and everyone else around us.
So, one of the pages attached to your Exhibit A1, that at the end says, "Thank you, the Bowens." Is that sort of a narrative? Is that your narrative?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, I mean, these are some of the concerns we generally have with garages that are requested a height special exception or variance.
correct.
So you would have no habitable space in this garage whatsoever?
No, it's just for Christmas decorations and patio furniture.
No running water?
No, there's no running water.
And you only
There's no
propose
drains.
electricity?
There's no electricity. It's just a storage space.
No, not even a ceiling light upstairs in the garage?
No, I'd like to put a pole chain if we could to, see, to get the.
A pull chain, you mean a drop-down stair?
No, a pole chain light that's in, like the A,
Yeah.
where the A is. So just so we can see what's going on, but no, there's no, I know that, the codes, they don't want anyone living up there, which we nobody living.
So the only utility would be electric? That's,
Would be a pull chain light.
question,
That's
Jessica?
correct.
So, I know that the height of the garage you said was driven by the proportion of your house. There was also mention of having a lift for your antique cars.
Correct.
Do you hoist those up to the second floor?
Oh, no.
Or just to get under them?
It's just to get under, and so it's basically a stackable unit. And the reason why we went up a little higher, because it drifts, it's got to come up and drift down to lock into the locking mechanism for the lift. But the ceiling from the floor is 11 feet 4 inches.
Okay.
So it travels a little bit higher than it comes back down.
And if you did not have that lift, would you be unable to store the cars in the
Two of them,
garage?
yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So in theory, you'd have to have a wider garage if you
Correct,
couldn't.
because
put
there
them
would still
up.
need room for the bikes and
Right.
toys and so on and so forth.
And on the second floor, the center part of the garage, is that open to below?
Pardon, ma'am?
Yes, you can. Is this open to below? Is the lift here in the center?
Oh, no, that's just the dormers.
Oh, okay, that's just showing the eave, okay. No further questions?
Ed?
Yeah, I'm having trouble reading the dimensions. Make sure I can be heard on the mic. The issue on the dimensions from the floor to the ceiling height on the second floor.
Exhibit, Ed, which exhibit?
This would be Exhibit A4, excuse me.
Okay,
Yeah, could you read off the dimensions on the second floor, from the floor to the ceiling height?
can it expand? There it is. It's 6 feet tall. It's just, I can walk underneath it if I put a ladder up there.
Yeah, those don't look like the numbers that I'm seeing, so I just want to make sure. It looks like 7 and 8, but I will not have a problem if it's 6, but if it's 7 or 8, I'm going to.
No, it's just, I'm 6 foot tall and it's right here at the highest point from the beam.
Okay, that is another question I had, because you could sort of like pre and post tense a lot of times. This structure is not existing currently, right? Or
It is existing.
oh, you got built and then somebody reported you and then.
And then they rescinded their report because I had spoken to them and you know,
But you
explained
can't,
it. We had
but you had
planned.
to apply for a variance because of the structure is not in compliance.
Well, I didn't know this at the time when we got the permit, that I should have gone for a special exception, but I didn't know the zoning exactly. But also, we planted trees to buffer, and actually, we took down some trees, we planted some new ones, so to keep everybody, you know, happy. So it's just a matter of 14 inches. Basically, the drawing there is exactly what it's gonna look like, the front elevation, which is exactly what it's gonna
You
be.
see, the reason I'm concerned about the height of the ceiling on the second floor is that we've worked to prevent future people coming in. 7 feet is required for a habitable space.
Yeah.
So if it is only 6 feet, then that rests my concern that somebody's gonna be easily come in there and say, I have a 7-foot floor,
Yeah.
I can convert it easily, or just happen to do it.
No, and as the pitch is down, it's about 4 feet at the lowest part. Within the dormer, I believe, is about 16, so I can
And
just.
how confident are you in your answers? Are you
Oh,
estimating or you're
absolutely
sure?
confident, yeah. I know when I walk up there, I have about 2 inches on top of my head.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot tall. And when I go to the window, to the one side, it's about 4 foot tall, 50 inches. You couldn't live up there.
So could you make a revision to A4, so we have that, because it looked like 7 and 8 foot on this plan to me. If you could write on there the maximum height, 6 feet, 6'2", whatever you
Okay.
say, then I would love you to have you change that exhibit, because I cannot read the numbers on here.
I have to get.
Hold on one second. Mr. Bowen, do you have an extra exhibit A4, or do you need one? To mark up.
May I?
Yes, I'll give him mine.
Tiny.
Bill, how does this get marked? As a revised or an addition?
No, this will be Exhibit A12.
A12? So small, it's hard for me to even read it.
I think what Mr. McGargy really wants is you just to note on this that that height will not exceed. And I would say, just out of an abundance of caution, would you be okay with 6 foot 6 inches?
It's not,
Ed?
I know it's not 6'6", for a fact, because I'm 6 foot tall.
As
and
long as
it's-
it's under 7 foot, I think is.
I think as long as you mark on there not to exceed 6 foot 6 inches, I think
cer-
that would
Yeah, It's
satisfy.
100% under 7 foot.
So I just think all he's asking you to do is to take that and mark there and make a notation that that will not exceed 6 feet 6 inches.
Thank you for clearing that up.
For further clarification, I know that, you know, the garage had begun to be built, and when the height exceeded what was permitted was when, you know, we stopped the work and you had to be here for the special exception. How, I believe that it's already at that height?
Pardon?
So I'm just looking for a bit of clarification of Are you going to shrink it down?
No, it's existing to where it is, the total height from,
Okay, so A4 that you submitted earlier this week, I have reasonably young eyes, and I have a clearer copy than the board does.
okay.
Where it does, Mr. McGargy is correct, it does say 8 feet to the highest point and then 7 at the lowest on that second floor.
Yeah. On the
My
draw-
concern is that if it's already built, are you going to be bringing that roof lower?
No, it is already built. So I'm 6 foot tall, so it's about 6'3".
I understand, but the plans that you submitted just the other day indicate that it's 8 and 7.
Would it be possible to get pictures of the garage as it's been built, perhaps showing some measurements?
Well, I would have to take some pictures. I mean, I have.
Sorry, that wasn't me, that was Ms. Patel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jess,
So the total, from what I understand, these are what I had from the framer, so. And the short of it, from the concrete slab to the very tippy top of the roof is 18 feet or 19 feet 6 inches. And it's supposed to be 18 feet, so that's the total height. So inside, when you walk up the steps and come to the ridge beam, it's, so from, 6'3".
Mr. Bowen, if I could interrupt, and I don't think anybody's trying to be difficult here, but this board has an obligation to make sure they get things right. My suggestion to the board and to the applicant is that this matter is not, in my opinion, right to be considered and finalized tonight, but can be finalized at the next hearing in 2 weeks. And I would suggest that precise measurements be taken by you, as well as pictures of the area since it's already built, and brought back to the board so that they can have that available to make their decision.
Okay.
I mean, based on what you testified, my feeling is the roof slope changed and was brought down, but the drawings show, it looks like a 23-foot 6 high structure, and that's what's driving the second floor higher. So we would really, since this is an exhibit, just need the actual measurements since it's
Okay.
built.
Yeah, I can measure it and take pictures with the tape measure and show you exactly. I mean, it's been a while because since this,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
it
Sure.
was stopped in November, but I was so busy working, I didn't have time to revisit it, and work comes first, so I can certainly take the, pictures of the measurements and show them to you then.
I hear you. And it's not that anyone's questioning whether you're telling, what you're saying is accurate.
Right.
But if the ceiling is actually 8 feet high and you sell that property,
Oh, I know.
someone will
Right.
could end up living in there, and I'm not, I think
Oh,
you're
sure.
getting
I
a sense that
understand
the
that
board's
completely.
sympathetic to your special exception request, but for the fact that we need to be certain that no one will be living upstairs.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take a picture of me standing, or have my wife take a picture of me standing with the top of the,
A
I'll
tape
get you.
measure would be better, otherwise we're gonna have to measure you, and social distancing, but
all right, so I will get you measurements from the very top of the, it's just hard for me to see with this. these
Sure, and I
drawings.
think if you can take those measurements and the pictures, and even if you can get them to Kelly in advance of the next hearing, we can have those marked as additional exhibits, get them to the board, and we should be able to expedite your hearing on the 16th.
And just for further clarification, the Exhibit A4 it shows 21 feet 9 inches to the peak. So that's just leave, the copies
Right,
that you
know,
guys
I think
were
I
sent
sub-
were a little fuzzy.
Yeah, submitted a revised or,
That would be wonderful, just so there's clarity when someone's looking at this file 10 years from now.
okay.
It is very difficult to read such
It is,
tiny
it's so
numbers.
small. Would it be okay if I were basically to draw this again and give you the,
Sure.
Or
Exact-
even better would be this one particular drawing on A4 in the upper right corner.
correct?
If we could get a larger one, or something that's more legible, that's also as-built.
All right, I can draw that and I'll give you the exact measurements with pictures, with
Okay,
Perfect.
great,
the
thank you.
inside. It's easier, I agree with you, it's easier to read, but it's been such a while and it's been, you know, a crazy couple of months, so,
You're not kidding.
to say the least.
Yeah, I agree with my.
But I would like to get this finished because it's, you know, it's still open to the elements, I still get some water in, you know, on a heavy rain, so it's just.
Sure, so just the sooner you can get those to Kelly, she'll get them to the board and to myself, and I don't see any reason why we can't have this matter listed first on the 16th.
I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with my board mates, that it is important. As you were talking, you said a few different measurements which conflicted with the exhibit.
Right, well, I have to,
So
I get,
we need to get that buttoned down. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add tonight before we continue the case?
no, sir.
Any other questions or requests of Mr. Bowen before we continue the case?
I do not.
Bill?
No, I just think, I'd like to talk to council about, the application is in the alternative, a special exception versus a variance. Special exception is the use of this property with a detached garage up to 18 feet. I think that they need a variance, right?
I would view this as a variance case, yes. But
Will
again,
you check
since
into it, Bill?
since both are
I
requested,
don't-
it's
I
fine.
don't want you answering questions, legal questions on the record.
Yeah, I just want you to, maybe advise us if this really is simply a variance.
So will this, will the measurements that I take suffice?
Yeah, that won't bear on that question. It's just about
Okay,
what our decision, the nature of our decision.
Okay.
Look, no one can tell you what the outcome is going to be, right? So you bring the clarified exhibit, there may be additional questions, and we'll see what the decisions is. You applied for two types of relief, one primary and one in the alternative, and which Bill's thinking ahead, Bill Rhodes, as to which is applicable, but that's something that we'll have our counsel research and advise us on.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, then this case is continued to our July 16, 2020 hearing. And we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the